So September is here, and though it's not technically fall, it is pretty much fall to me. Fall is my favorite season. Can't help but start to think about the holidays. They'll be here before you know it. It's never too soon to get prepared for it. So I thought it's a good time to brush up on some basic knife skills. We're gonna tackle the onion. If you're like me, you're gonna be cutting a ton of onions in the next few months. To have that not become sort of a nuisance and an issue for you, you can start practicing now. The more you practice, the quicker you're gonna be able to do all these things, and you get to a point when if you need to chop an onion, it's gonna be no problem. So let's get into it. First off, you're gonna need a good cutting board. This is a Boost board. It's about like 24 inches by 30 inches or something like that. I have it linked in the description below. Boost is my favorite. It's nice and thick. The thickness of the board matters. These are quality cutting boards, and they're a bit pricey, but like you're gonna use this forever. $100, $150 for a good cutting board to me is a good investment. And then when you have it, you wanna make sure that you have some sort of wet towel or some stabilizing rubber or something that will allow the cutting board to not move at all when you're chopping. So now that I'm secure, we can talk about the knife. It's important to hone your knife before and after every time you use it if you want to maximize the longevity of your sharp edge. The end of it is this thing called a burr, which is just like folds in the point of the knife. There's basically like defects into like the sharp edge of the knife, and so instead of it being flat along the edge, there's pieces that sort of intertwine, and using a honing steel sort of helps shapen it up and make it sharp again. It's very simple to do. There's one thing to note, which is basically an angle of sharpening. There's many ways to hold one of these guys. This is called a honing steel. Depending on the mood and the day, I'll hold this differently. You wanna know how to hold a knife first. I see people holding a knife like this, and what this does is it gives you no sort of control, right? It's floppier than if you just move your hand up here. You want the knife to act as an extension of your arm, right? You don't want it to kind of be flimsy. Any movement you make, you want it to be intentional and calculated. It's important to have a balance in your knife, and to kind of hold it where the balance is makes chopping a little easier. So I always hold the knife like this. I have one thumb pushed up against one side of the blade, and my pointer finger not near the end of the blade, but just on it, pinching it. And then I have total control. This also sort of acts as a measurement for the right angle I use. So what I'll use is my pointer finger and my thumb when I'm sharpening a knife. So I'll basically just use this finger as my guide, and then just bend the knife like that, and that'll be my angle. And then the same on the other side. Use my thumb like this. And I don't want to go down, right? I don't want to do this. So I don't want it to ever touch this or come close to my hand. So it's more of like I'm starting at the base, and I'm kind of scooping up, maybe going towards the halfway point of this, never sort of coming down here. Alternatively, you can hold it out and do the same thing. Or the more sensible way to do it away from you is to hold the honing steel like that, pointing down, secure into the board, and then just do the same thing. So I'm happy with that. I fixed those imperfections, so we're good to go. First thing you want to do is buy good onions. You want to feel them, they want to be firm, they want the paper and the shell kind of be as tight as it can around it, and that'll be really fresh. So like you know, you got the root, and then you get the top. Most of the time, I only take the top off. Sometimes I take the root off. For this slice, we're going to take both off. Make an incision, and then pull off all the rubbery bits. There's even like a papery thin layer that you might be fooled into thinking is part of the onion, but it's not very good. So you can pull that right off. Now we're just gonna cut it in half. Now you're holding the knife properly. Now there's lots of styles when it comes to chopping and slicing. There's people who will push forward. There's some people who will make a little slot up at the top and then pull back. There's some people who just kind of chop up and down. If you want to get quick at one quickly, you can practice that way. I have a little bit left there, so I just want to kind of cut that off. So you want to take your hands, take your thumb and your pinky and pinch them together. Keep them in the back like this, and then take these 3 fingers and curl them. And then your knife goes against your middle finger's knuckle, and it never goes above this point. The top stays there, and then you just push through. You're not pushing down, you're pushing forward. You're letting the knife point down and push forward. Alternatively, you could push a little forward and then come down, or you could chop. Speed is not the game right now. You want it to be precise and accurate, so practice cutting it slow. As you get closer, take more of a firmer grip across, watching your fingers. The closer you get to your fingers, the slower you get. And then you can just push it over, and then you have nice slices. You can do it this way. It's the same thing, but you're just gonna cut across. And there's sort of like an angle. I like to take my knife and cut along that angle, and then adjust the angle I'm cutting as I come across it. Now I'm starting to get a little wobbly. I want to push it over and finish. Still, you have a slice, but it looks a little bit different than this guy. One's bigger, one's smaller. Here it's coming. You can control the size, whether you want thicker slices or thinner slices, by how wide of cuts you make. If you want a thicker rings, depending on how you like fajitas or something, you use your middle finger as like your measuring line. So if I want them thicker, I can cut them a little bigger. Or if I want to get them as thin as I can, you can have them super thin. I want to take the top and the bottom off. If there's any sort of flat edge, find it and take like a more firm, wider grip around it. Angle the knife down and then push down. So these again are good for like onion rings, or depending on how thick you cut them for burgers, if you kind of like that. For onion rings, you're just gonna pop them out. Now for the dice, I want to keep the root on and just take the top off. See, this side looks like it's fine, but then this side's like paper. So I just want to get that off. Now this is like a semi-dangerous way to do it, but this is the quickest, most efficient way of dicing an onion. We basically want to make cuts across the onion and then cuts horizontally across the onion. And that's going to create like a grid that's so when we want to slice through it, it's already diced up into little cubes. The only problem is like you can potentially cut yourself really easily. So the best way is kind of either keep your hand like that and your arm up so that if you do kind of cut through, you're safe, or to kind of do this, but just make sure you're never gonna cut anything higher than that, and be careful you don't slice upward into your hand. This has happened before, so I just want you to learn from mistakes. I like to start with the horizontal cut first and then cut across. So I'm not going all the way across. I'm just kind of going about 3/4 of the way there. And with the tip of my knife, carefully go across. Get your feet up. And then you've got this nub here with all this onion around it. So what I like to do is and that's all you have left. You can go even smaller if you want by just making more cuts vertically and more cuts horizontally, and then thinner slices across like this. So then you have like a smaller dice. Sometimes you want to get even finer of a dice. So that's where the chopping method comes in. The two-handed dice. So you have one hand here, and you have your hand like this, and you just chop. Crisscross patterns. Then if you want a big dice, I'll just do bigger cuts across and then no horizontal cuts. Final way I'm going to show you is something that I kind of saw recently that I thought was interesting. It's the cut of the Bloomin onion, where you can batter it, deep fry it, and you have little like onion ring fries. First, you're just going to take the top off. You take the paper off as well. So you can just take the root off. You want to keep it on. And you just kind of want to take the fuzz off. And then essentially, you're just going to make cuts across the opposite ways. So there you have it. I mean, some of these you will use more than others. I don't use this guy, I never have. I guess I have to make a Bloomin' onion now. Everything else though is something that you should know. If you practice, you know, like seek an opportunity to practice. Whenever you're cutting anything, use it as practice time and be diligent and thoughtful about it and practice safety and proper technique. And I promise you, if you do that over the course of a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, the improvement you won't believe, and you'll be chopping through onions, or anything for that matter, as fast as lightning. All these techniques apply to shallots. You know, shallots are just smaller onions. These are basically all the ways you really need to know how to cut an onion. Why I emphasize cutting and knife technique is not only for efficiency and speed, but all of these different sizes will create different kinds of flavors. This thinner one is not going to be as strong as eating one of these pieces, and this will kind of dissolve a little bit more, cook a little bit faster than, you know, the medium dice. So it's like you have to know what you want out of the ingredient and out of the cut, and then kind of reverse engineer it and figure out the way that you want to use the onion. That's cooking, guys. Hope you found that helpful. Thank you so much for watching again. As always, I super appreciate it. I have like a childlike excitement around the holiday time, and I know it's a little bit away, but this year it's particularly exciting for me now that I have this medium to kind of share my food and recipes with you. I'm extra excited for the holidays this year. Keep getting in the kitchen, keep inspiring others to get in the kitchen, and see you next time.